talked about loans at all or anything
Oh
like that yet.
no.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're going to get started in just about 5 minutes. So if you can start heading to your seats and your tables, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. You still have 5 minutes, though.
You died so I could finally breathe. Nothing compares to your affection for me. Pieces I thought I'd lost, being restored, no longer named. But worldly things, oh, you're speaking to my soul in a way I can finally understand. Oh, your love is simple, simple. Your love is kind, and I never have to wonder if I'm on your mind. You gave it all to save me, to make sure I'm safe, and I never have to worry, oh, that you'll stop loving me. Oh, your love is simple. Your love is kind. Oh, your love is simple. Your love is kind. I was feeling lots of things the other night, and I never dream, but when I do, it's never here on the other side. I was waiting 5 minutes for you to reply, and I never slide into the DMs, but I knew this would be worth a try. It's been a few days, I'm already sure, and we always knew that this would be the only cure. So let's call it forever. I'm already sure. I've never been so sure that you're my kind of forever. I'm already sure. I've never been so sure that you're my kind of forever. Forever, forever, that you're my kind, yeah. Let's turn our goodbyes into good nights. Life is getting so bright, watching the sun set in your eyes. So now here we start. I'm yours in your mind for the rest of our days, with our hearts intertwined. Oh, let's call it forever. I'm already sure. I've never been so sure that you're my kind of forever. I'm already sure. I've never been so sure that you're my kind of forever.
All right, good morning, everyone. If you could please take your seats, we're about to get started. I know folks are chatting and stuff and still coming in, but we want to get moving on our day, so thank you. All right. So, welcome to Fresno Pacific University's Leadership Forum 2023. My name is Dr. Michelle Bradford, and I'm the interim dean for the School of Business. We're excited that we're hosting this event for all of you this morning, and we've got a fantastic morning planned. And we have a great program scheduled. So today we're going to have breakfast. We've got a keynote speaker joining us. We've got breakout sessions, wonderful sponsor booths for all of you to enjoy. But right now I have the honor and privilege of introducing you to our president, Dr. Stevens. Dr. Stevens became president of Fresno Pacific University on July 1st, 2022, bringing 30 years of experience in Christian higher education to our university. He came to FPU from Biola University, where he had been vice president for student development. In professional organizations, Dr. Stevens has served the North American Coalition for Christian Admissions Professionals as president, and the Council for Christian Colleges and University as chair of the Commission for Chief Student Development Officers. That's a lot. Okay, great. Dr. Stevens has a BA in Communications from Biola, an MA in Speech Communications from California State University at Fullerton, and a PhD in Education from Claremont Graduate University. He and his wife Beth have 3 adult children. President Stevens counts it as a privilege to serve our community and is a true champion for students and promoting the positive impact of higher Christian education. Without further ado, Dr. Stevens.
Thank you, Dr. Bradford, and good morning and welcome to Fresno Pacific. So whether this is your first time here or if you've been here a couple times, I just want to be one of the voices to say welcome. And this is a beautiful building, and I hope you can enjoy it today as you go into your breakout sessions. This morning, as I was praying for this event, a couple things came to me, especially as we talk about leadership. And I just think Dr. Bradford shared a little bit about my degrees, and I was thinking there, you know, it doesn't mean a whole lot unless we are in service to one another. And that's what leadership is. You will hear today from our keynote speaker and certainly the breakout sessions, all these things about leadership. And the challenge that I would have for you, and it's even one for myself, so I'm just going to share it, is leadership. And I saw the word courage in some of the sessions today. And courage, if you know the etymology of that word, the Latin word cor, that's where courage comes from. And it's core, if you know core is your heart, like coronary, right? And so to have courage means to take heart or to have heart. And so courage is not just an intellectual pursuit. It's not just, trying to gear up for something to face, but it's really to have a heart. And so we need people, we need leaders who have a heart and who take heart, right? There's a lot of smart people in the world. We need people who have good hearts. They say that many people are overmanaged and underled. Overmanaged and underled. And I hope today, as you sit in the sessions, the keynotes, and the breakout, that your heart will be stirred, not just your intellect, but your heart would be stirred, and that we would be better leaders for this time. So again, welcome to FPU. I again want to thank you for coming. There's a great team of people, staff, and faculty behind this to make this day possible. And I just want to pause and pray for our breakfast and for our day. Good morning, God. We thank you for your touch this morning that woke us up. And you say, this is a day that you have made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And so as we come into this space, the things that we are carrying both personally and professionally, Lord, the joys and the challenges, we don't leave them outside. We don't minimize them, but we bring it to you because you are a big God. You are able. You are the all-sufficient one to meet our needs according to your riches and glory. I pray that you would be with our speakers today. Would you grant them clarity of thought and mind as they engage us? I pray that we would have ears to listen, Lord, and hearts that are receptive to the things that are good and true and beautiful from you, God. And that we would leave this place, again, not just with wiser strategies and tactics, but with hearts that are bigger and fuller for the people that you love in our spheres of influence. I thank you now for the food we're about to receive. We're grateful for your provision. We know that there's so many without, so thank you. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Located in the heart of the Central Valley, Fresno Pacific University is a community of learners committed to a distinctive vision of Christian higher education. The Mennonite Brethren Church has always valued education, and in 1944, Pacific Bible Institute opened its doors on Van Ness Avenue in Fresno, California, with 28 students. As the educational climate evolved, newly appointed President Arthur Wiebe encouraged his young faculty to rethink their institutional identity. The outcome was the Pacific College Idea, a guiding document that would shape the institution for decades to come. By the 1980s, FPU experienced rapid increases in enrollment and financial support. By 1997, Fresno Pacific College became Fresno Pacific University. By the early 2000s, regional campuses were added in Bakersfield, North Fresno, Visalia, and Merced. And in 2010, the Mennonite Brethren Seminary was folded into the university and renamed Fresno Pacific Biblical Seminary. Today, Fresno Pacific is a vibrant, Christ-centered community and the Central Valley's only accredited Christian university. FPU is equipping generations of students of all ethnicities and cultures with unlimited opportunity. Over the past 3/4 of a century, FPU has developed innovative programs encouraging academic and professional excellence, peacemaking, social justice, ethical leadership, holistic wellness, and spiritual vitality. This is the story of Fresno Pacific, a story of education, a story of community, a story God is writing through each student, faculty, alum, supporter, and friend. We celebrate the legacy of Fresno Pacific University as we look ahead to the next groundbreaking chapter.
Good morning once again. I know we started having some conversation, and I just wanted to take a moment to once again welcome everyone, as President Stevens just did, and also acknowledge an opportunity to acknowledge the sponsors who have helped make this day possible. So again, good morning and welcome to the Leadership Forum. My name is Becky Bradley, and I serve as the Executive Director of Communications here at Fresno Pacific. And it's so good to have all of you here with us this morning. There are many people who help make this morning possible, including our many sponsors. So at this time, I'd like to recognize the lead sponsor of our event, Wells Fargo Private Bank, and invite Michael Granis and Sally Gallagher from Wells Fargo on stage to say a few words. So please join me in welcoming Wells Fargo and thanking them for their generous contribution.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. My name is Mike Granis, Wells Fargo Private Bank, and this is Sally Gallagher with Wells Fargo Advisors. And we're just excited this morning to be partnering with Fresno Pacific University in support of the Leadership Forum this morning. I did want to give a special thank you to Andre Stevens for your support of this event and of our local business community. Wells Fargo Private Bank and our team has worked with Fresno Pacific University Foundation for over 2 decades. In assisting them with their planned giving strategies in partnership with our philanthropic team. We've had a long-standing relationship with them, and we're proud to say that out loud.
Good morning. I'm Sally Gallagher again, and I am the Central Valley leader for Wells Fargo Wealth Management, and we are so delighted to be here today, and thank you so much for this event. Wells Fargo Private Bank is the only national private bank who has established a location right here in Fresno. Our teams live here and they work here in the Valley and understand the complexities of serving our clients and their needs here. Through our partnership with our financial advisors, with Wells Fargo Advisors, we work together to bring solutions such as philanthropic, philanthropic goals, wealth management, real estate acquisition and management, and just good old-fashioned wealth management. So again, we're so thrilled to be here. Mike and I will be here after the event, and we can answer any questions that you might have. So good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Sally, and thanks again to Wells Fargo for their support and generous contribution. We also have several other sponsors who we would like to recognize and thank them for their contribution in making today possible. In addition to our lead sponsor of Wells Fargo, we would like to thank and acknowledge the following. Our integrity sponsors, including Camarina Health, Johansson Transportation Service, the MB Foundation, and Moore Grider and Company. Can we give them a hand, please? In addition, we also have our influence sponsors, including CBMC, Christian Businessmen's Connection of Fresno, the Fresno Pacific University Foundation, the Fresno Pacific University School of Business, and the Center for Community Transformation here at Fresno Pacific University. Can we give them a hand, please? So at this time, we are going to move into the breakfast portion of the morning. And during breakfast, we will have some very nice music provided for us by Fresno Pacific's own Pacific Brass Ensemble. And so as they come out here in just a moment, I want to let you know that Fresno Pacific's Brass Ensemble is the oldest instrumental ensemble and regularly performs for a number of on- and off-campus occasions, such as the university's annual Festival of Lessons and Carols, the Brass Bash at Fresno City College, and the Fresno chapter of the American Guild of Organists Hymn Festival. They are under the direction and artistic guidance of Associate Professor George Docherty, who's the director of bands and the coordinator of instrumental music. Members of this band here to my left include Tony Franchino on the horn, George Docherty and Omar Ruiz on the trumpets, Owen Nestling on the trombone, and Taylor Duche on the tuba. So please enjoy the food as it comes out here in a moment and the music, and we will begin the program again here shortly. Thank you. you. Yeah. Good morning again. Hopefully everyone's been enjoying their food and the coffee and the conversation. Can we give a hand for Pacific Brass, please, and the wonderful music that they provided? Thank you so much. It was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to welcome on stage Carlos Huerta, who is the Executive Director of the Center for Community Transformation here at Fresno Pacific University. Carlos is going to share with us for a moment and then have a video for us to watch. So, Carlos.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Carlos Huerta, and I'm the Executive Director of the FPU Center for Community Transformation. In 2021, we actually applied for a sizable grant to the Eli Lilly Foundation, which is the funder of, is the largest funder of any faith-led initiative across the country. And we had this proposal where we were looking to support congregations in our Central Valley between Bakersfield and Merced, tied to our regional campuses, helping them thrive in their context. And so out of 120 proposals that were funded in 2021, in the 2022 National Conference, the Eli Lilly Foundation and Duke University chose to highlight 3 models across the country. One of them was the FPU Center for Community Transformation. And so we actually want to present the video to you today that was actually shared at the National Conference last year. We hope you enjoy the video. Thank you. Welcome to the Central Valley of California. We are the breadbasket of the world. Though so much of the world benefits from the fruit of our labor, an astounding number of our residents go hungry and are locked in systems that perpetuate poverty. To address this, the Fresno Pacific University Center for Community Transformation, or CCT for short, is equipping congregations with a focused series of trainings, including financial literacy, startup business, community transformation strategies for Spanish-speaking leaders, and a training series to help leaders thrive in their context. We're excited for you to meet Pastora Delfina Vasquez, who serves people in her rural context, and Pastora Gaina Flores, who serves families in her urban context. They're at the heart of what we do, and we invite you to see how they've benefited from our programs at CCT as they seek sustainable solutions to their community's challenges in the name of Christ.
This community is struggling. They're below the poverty level. Economically, it's lower than the whole state of California, but there is a high increase of unemployment, a lot of single parents, migrant workers that are in need, and so we try to service those individuals in this community. It's getting better, I believe, because of the faith we have in God.
I love Selma. I love to be in the barrio, around the people that need help the most, because they're so grateful for simple things. One of the things that we do here is we have a food distribution. We feed about 11,000 people here in Selma, and people are just so grateful. It is really, really a wonderful place to be, but it has a lot of needs.
Once we realized that the people needed the church, really the people needed the help, then we began. And so we've been operating the ministry ever since. This was a new era for us. I don't think it's just for St. Paul, but I think it was for all churches. And so the New Skills for New Era enlightened us, and it helped us. It gave us the tools we needed to address certain things that were occurring.
A lot of the people that we serve, their issue is not being able to manage their money, mismanagement. And so one of the classes I took was faith and finance. And through that, even, I gotta say, it even helped me. Because I realized as we were going through the faith and finance class, as we were going through these, I realized how much money we were kind of just letting fall through the cracks and not properly using it. So that was one of the things that our congregation struggled with. And so the class helped us with that. Another thing that we really learned is more outreach. We really learned a lot on the outreach part of it. And as right now, we've actually completed 2 full 5-day outreach, a 3-day outreach, and we're going on our 7-month, 7 outreaches. So we've learned a lot through that.
The hopes for the congregation and for the people that we serve is that they can be self-sufficient, you know. So if we can help the individual, if we can help the community in whatever possible way, so that they have a level playing to begin to function. We decided to just minister to the community. Started out as a feeding ministry and a tutoring ministry. From there it became a household item ministry, and then the clothing ministry. And so it just grew. It's not just to address one thing, but we try to address the whole thing, from spiritual to the physical. And it's not just the person, but we try to invest in the family.
You know, the hopes that we're serving, of the people that we're serving in our church, is for them to gain that self-worth. We serve a lot of people that are broken. And so our goal is the focus of the hand up, restoring that. Our biggest primary reason for existing has been to help the least of these. And so I was really excited. I feel like this was a God thing, where the Lord connected us with CCT. And so now we do everything, including housing them, and then we can help them with their people skills through giving them a job.
We are inspired as we see Pastoras Delfina and Gaina develop new skills as they move their congregations to thrive in their context. The tools they've acquired will live on, and we are seeing a perpetual, abundant harvest of divine fruit in the soil of this sacred place that we call home.
And watch this community change.
All right, thank you for that. Since we have a captive audience right now, I wanted to share a little bit of information about the School of Business. So not only do we offer programs for our undergraduate, degree completion, and graduate students, we are also supporting our community through this idea and concept of upskilling. So what is upskilling, right? So that's like a buzzword now in business, and it really has to do with taking your current workforce, where they are, and really just helping them move to the next level by supporting their development within the workplace. So really investing in your employees. So this is something that we've started at the School of Business, and we're partnering with community members to make sure that we're able to support in this idea of upskilling. And the way that we're doing this is we've got kind of 3 different areas that we're working on. Our workforce training. So this is an opportunity where we can actually go into organizations and customize training. They can take place between, it could be a couple workshop sessions, it could be about 6 weeks, but we go in, we find out what the need of the organization is, and then we create a customized program to help with the upskilling aspect of all employees within the organization. The next area that we're able to do this is through our Business Insights series. And these are a series of kind of short videos where we introduce a topic to help support the development of business acumens for employees. And then we have roundtable sessions. So we do this once a month, and it's a really neat opportunity because we facilitate it via Zoom. Organizations can kind of look at it as a lunch and learn. So if you want, you can gather your folks together, patch into the session via Zoom, and then we provide certificates of participation. So employees can actually use this when they go for their annual reviews or something and show that they're continuously working on their professional development. The last area that I'd like to share with all of you is going to be our Human Resource Management Certificate, and we're really excited about this because this is new. We're partnering with our continuing education and created a series of courses that folks can take, and they focus on areas that have to do with like employment law, labor relations, and things like that. So that's another opportunity where if you send your employees there, they can have that kind of elevated information that they need to move forward with their positions. And again, that's through our continuing education. So lots of various ways that the School of Business is supporting our community with this upskilling kind of concept. If you'd like more information about that, we do have a table outside, and we'd be happy to kind of answer any questions that you might have about how your organization can partner with our School of Business in supporting employees with this upskilling concept for all of you. All right, so very good. We're almost at our keynote speaker. So I would like to introduce the School of Business Program Director for the Masters in Strategic Organizational Leadership. So Dr. Susanna Dobrich-Weiss, could you please come up? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bradford. What a joy it is to be in your midst today. Thank you so much for coming. It is my incredible joy to be able to introduce to you today our keynote speaker. Dr. Mary Jo Burchard is a co-founder of Concord Solutions. She's an advocate for belonging, trust, and change readiness. She has become a sought-after consultant for leaders who want to help to creatively address pain points at crucial moments in major disruption and change. She also develops leaders through customized coaching and training. Mary Jo uses research, humor, stories, and interactive engagement to help people discover their capacity to face challenges and do hard things with kindness and strength. After working for 11 years at Fresno Pacific University, she left in 2014 and worked for the municipal government of Virginia Beach, doing training, leadership development, and internal consulting. In 2019, she began consulting full-time. Since then, she has helped leaders and teams in a variety of industries. Mary Jo became the organizational recovery consultant after the 2019 mass shooting in Virginia Beach. Over the past year, she has partnered with counselors in Ukraine to develop numerous resilience-building resources for displaced refugees. Mary Jo has a PhD in organizational leadership from Regent University in Virginia Beach, and both her MA and BA are from Fresno Pacific University. Mary Jo lives in Virginia Beach with her husband, Kenny, and their son, Victor, and their Chihuahua, Stanley. It is my distinct privilege to introduce to you my dear friend and a greatest encourager, Mary Jo Burchard.
Can you hear me? Are we on? Awesome, wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today. I would like to start by opening with a road trip. If we can get to, here we go. Excellent. So I'm going to take you back in time to 1995, where a very young, newly married Kenny and Mary Jo were finishing up a long road trip. This was the final leg of a cross-country trip, and it began in southeastern Utah and was supposed to end 7 hours later in northwestern Utah. And so, since I was wide awake, I volunteered to drive. We decided to drive through the night to save time and get home as quickly as possible. And so I said, I'm willing to drive as long as I can wake you up at any point if I need some navigational advice, because he was the local. He grew up in Utah. So with that, I felt good. Now, remember, this is 1995, so GPS was a map, a paper map. And it was Utah, so there were not very many opportunities to make decisions about roads. So I felt good about the idea of just driving, once we got on the road, driving, and if I had any questions, just asking my husband, waking him up and asking him, and just leaving that map folded up safely next to him in the back seat. So you know this is going somewhere really fantastic, right? And so we started driving. About 2 hours in, I got to one of the two major pivotal crossroads, and I could either continue on the interstate or cut up north onto a state road. And so I thought, okay, I could pull over, turn on the light, disrupt everything, or I could just stick with the plan and just wake Kenny up really quickly, ask him for navigational confirmation, and continue. And of course, I stuck with the plan and said, hey, Kenny, sorry to bother you, but really quick, do I stay on the interstate or do I go north on the state road? And as lucidly and as clearly as I am speaking to you now, he said, no, 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 stay on the interstate. It's just keep going. I said, okay. Should I at least get gas here because it's starting to get really late? And he said, no, we'll get gas when we get there. We'll be fine. Just keep going. Just stay on the interstate. I don't want to lose any time. I said, okay, great. With full confidence, we continue on the interstate. And as the elevation continued to rise and the temperature began to drop and the snow began to fall, I just continued to say, and the gas continued to wane, I just continued to tell myself, it's okay. Pretty soon we're going to see the lights of the Utah Valley coming up over the horizon. Just any time now. Here come the lights. Any time now. The snow continues to fall heavier and heavier. I'm realizing I don't have a coat, but that's okay because pretty soon we're going to get there. And finally, as the sun starts to rise, I realize I'm not seeing the lights of Provo. And so, but here comes a green sign. Oh, good. I can see how many minutes until Provo. But the sign didn't say Provo. The sign said Joseph 6. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had ever been through a town called Joseph, I would remember. And I didn't have any recollection of passing through a town called Joseph, so I finally pulled over and pulled out the map, unfolded it, and started going, Joseph, 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 Joseph. So I thought we were almost up here at the Provo Valley, and where we actually were was 6 miles from this beautiful location, up in the mountains with no food, no gas, no heavy coats, in what was now a full-fledged blizzard. Freeze frame, because what happened next is not very flattering for me, and I want to look pretty for the audience today. But I will say, in my husband's defense, this is how we both discovered that he has the uncanny ability of carrying on completely lucid and convincing conversations while in a dead coma. So I share that with you today because this is often how it feels to lead today. Can you relate? You start with a beautiful plan. Everything is perfect. It's laid out. You have research to back everything that you've got contingencies. You've got your experts. You've got everything in place. And you hit the road. And sometime during your moment-to-moment goings-on, something happens. Whether you could have predicted it or not, maybe sometimes you could prevent it, sometimes not. Something happened that changed your trajectory. And you might not have even noticed in the moment what just happened. But as the light begins to dawn, you start realizing that your planned destination is not where you're going to be today. And you didn't have a contingency for this current situation that you are dealing with. And if COVID lockdown taught us anything, it's that we cannot plan enough to become invulnerable to the unexpected. And it's a sobering reality to wake up and realize that the world is not becoming more stable and more predictable. It's becoming more chaotic, more volatile, less reliable. And so the 1-year, 5-year, 10-year nice, neat plans that used to work as long as you planned the work and worked the plan, they work to a point, and obviously you need to have a plan. But you cannot plan your way out of vulnerability anymore. And so the kind of changes, the big, sweeping, unexpected changes that we experience as leaders, just the formulas that have always worked are insufficient. We need a new approach. We need to become unsinkable. And that is not an unrealistic hope. Becoming unsinkable is possible, but it's really hard. It requires that we humble ourselves and get vulnerable and allow authentic engagement and start looking at things for what they really are. And so today I'm going to get a little bit vulnerable and share some very disorienting things that have happened to me along the way. And hopefully, by the end of our time together, you will find different tips and things that you can do that can help you can become a more authentic leader and a more unsinkable human being. So let's get started at the place we all begin, the original Plan A. It's research-based, it's data-driven, it's convincing, it's inspiring. We're so ready for it. And our family's Plan A culminated in the year 2005 in a stuffy office in Kiev, Ukraine, where we were seated in an office, bracing ourselves to receive some 3-ring binders to start looking through profiles of orphans to potentially meet our son. We were so excited. And that was after years of preparation. What we did not anticipate was that when we sat down, we were informed that the only children that were available at that time had serious medical conditions if we wanted to meet a young child. So it was a real gut punch. And as we start flipping through these profiles of children that had severe medical issues, it was incredibly disorienting. It was hard not to panic. And I started feeling really guilty. How could I miss it so bad? How could we be here? And then suddenly, I had a revelation. And I thought, what if Plan A is still here? What if we're still supposed to be here even though this is not how I imagined it going down? And I prayed what is still the most terrifying prayer of my life. And I said, God, none of the children in these notebooks looks like what we imagined. But if our son is here, please help me to see past the diagnosis, to see him with your eyes. So I started over again in the notebook that I had. And this time I started going more slowly. Now, the first time that I saw a picture of Victor, I flipped past the page really quickly before that prayer because he had some birth defects that I couldn't make sense of. His jaw protruded down and was on his chin. His lip had not been corrected. He had a cleft lip and it had not been corrected. And so that lipless smile was just framing that deformed jaw. And I just didn't know how to make sense of it. And so it was all that I saw. So I flipped back past it really quickly. But after I prayed, something compelled me to take my thumb and just put it over his mouth. And in that moment, I saw him. I saw these beautiful, deep, dark brown eyes that looked really alive for somebody who had spent so much time in a bleak place. And I saw that he was reaching and he seemed unusually engaged. And then I took my thumb off and I realized that for everything else that was going on in the diagnoses, he was smiling. One of the only children in the notebooks that was smiling. And in that moment I said, I think I can see you in there. What a cool kid. And being able to see him made it possible for me to at least become curious about what was possible. And about 48 hours later, on the roller coaster ride of our lives, we found ourselves in another office, weeping again, this time tears of joy, because we had just met Victor Ivanovich Dimov, who would become Victor Michael Burchard. We had no idea what we had just signed up for. We did not know the roller coaster ride that was just beginning. But we did know one thing. We were meant to be together. And we were willing to move heaven and earth, do anything that was necessary to see him meet his potential. Now, as you can see in this picture, there were many things about Victor that did not fit with Kenny and Mary Jo. His daily lifestyle, his language, his sense of self. He had never been in a family before. Everything in his world did not fit everything in our world. But we made a decision. All three of us made a decision. He opened up his heart and he let us in. And we opened up our hearts and we let him in. And we chose to extend belonging before fit existed. Authentic leadership can make room for belonging before fit exists. So belonging does not require us to have everything together. It's just saying, I'm looking at you and saying, I see that there's some areas where there are gaps between us, but I'm willing to commit myself to those, closing those gaps. You're worth the effort. And you are saying to me, I see the gaps too, and you are worth the effort. Do you know what people need more than anything else in times of chaos and crisis and upheaval? They need to know they matter. Period. They need to know that they matter first. They need to be able to walk in the room if everything else is upside down and know that they're wanted, that they are worth the struggle, and that you are committed to them. And if they feel that, even when there is lack of fit, they have the power and the capacity to extend that same thing to you. Now, we knew that we were going to have a lot of challenges and that we might not have known everything that we had signed up for, but one thing we knew for certain. We did not have the privilege of trying to protect our child from pain. In fact, we knew that in order for him to reach his full potential, we were all signing up for years of deep pain and struggle. But I'll tell you something, because we belonged to each other, that struggle was sweet because we were sharing it together. It became a bonding thing. And so when you are committed to the people around you, when you have opened up your heart and said, I see you, I see that everything isn't perfect, but you're worth the struggle, and they open up their hearts to you, you will be amazed at what you're able to get through. And even those crises and those storms can become bonding agents between you. That's encouraging, isn't it? To know that you don't need smooth waters and no surprises to bond with people. It's incredibly encouraging. So I want to ask you something. What disappointments have held you back from opening up your heart to lead the people you actually have? What has kept you from looking at the people that are on your team, in your department, in your organization, in your family, and saying, I see you and I believe you're worth the struggle. I'm choosing to be all in for the sake of us, for the sake of this. I want to encourage you to let the storm do its good work and to let it become a bonding agent. And belonging is one of the key things that can hold you together when everything else is going upside down. The second thing that you can do, so crucial when things are upside down, when everything is in upheaval, is to tell the truth. To keep telling the truth, the whole truth, the uncomfortable truth. There are a lot of leaders that I work with that have been working with people in deep disruption, and people are just tired. Can anybody relate to that? Your organizations, people are just tired. It's just one wave after another after another. And so the leaders look at their people, and they see what's going to be required of them, and they hurt because they don't want to have to say it out loud because the people have been through enough. Listen, the more people have been through, the more they need to hear the whole truth. They need to know what it's going to take to get to the other side. What are they going to be signing up for? They can handle hearing it's going to be stormy. Guess what? They figured that one out already. And how many of you have ever been on a plane and you start getting the the turbulence, and the pilot comes on, and what does he say? Ladies and gentlemen, we have clearly hit some turbulence. It's going to be a little bumpy for the next 20 minutes, and then you should be able to move about the cabin freely. But until then, snacks are delayed. Right? We're okay with the snacks being delayed because we'd like to live, right? But no, have you ever been on a flight where the turbulence starts and there's silence? The pilot doesn't say anything. And you're like, does the pilot know what's going on? Is he up there playing? Is this his first time? What does this button do? You know. So when we know about approximately how long something is going to last, the suffering and how severe, and we can expect when it's going to be about over, it's so much easier to just hang in there. It doesn't take it away. There are so many changes that we can't vote on. They're just coming. So the more you can do people a favor and tell them the whole truth, the easier it is for them to be all in. Does that make sense? So telling the whole truth to people is also an act of trust. It's an act of support and affirmation because you're telling them, I believe you can handle what I'm about ready to tell you. I believe that we can do this together better than me trying to figure it out and just tell you what we're doing today. I'm going to welcome you into the insights that I'm able to give you so that we can come up with solutions together as much as possible. And when I have to make decisions, I'm going to let you know as quickly as I can. That's kindness. That's an act of care. The other thing that is important is that we need to be open to other people telling us the truth as well. There were times when we were trying so hard to understand what was going on and get some bearings and know the whole truth. And I remember one time it was four surgeries in, about a year after our son had come. And we had just finally gotten the date of when his jaw was going to be put into his mouth and he'd be able to close his mouth for the first time. We were so excited. And my husband said, okay, so just about how much longer do we have? How much longer until we can kind of go into normal life? And the doctor leaned his head against the wall and he said, yeah, I imagine you'll be able to have a great party, that it's all over, and of course I'll be invited on his 21st birthday. We looked down at our son. He was 4. And he said, yeah. Now, this is kindness. What happened next? The doctor said, stop holding your breath. Stop holding your breath and waiting for this to go away. It's not going to be over. This is your life now. Exhale. Learn how to live. That was the kindest thing that he could do. And so I'm going to pay that forward to you today. Look around the room. Every single person here, I guarantee, is going through some major challenge. But for a second, let's just think about yours. I want you to think back to that one thing that changed the trajectory of your life, that you point back to and say, man, everything is different now because I was robbed from whatever that was. Something happened, a tragedy, a surprise, a bait and switch, whatever it was. An economic collapse, a COVID virus, whatever it was, that was your pivotal moment. And you feel like you've been robbed of your plan A. What if plan A is still here, but it just looks different from what you thought? You need to be able to tell the truth and learn how to live. Exhale. Learn how to live in the actual reality as it exists today. Commit yourself to the actual people you are leading as the actual person you are, not the person that you wish you would have been, could have become, could have done. Let it go. This is your reality today. Exhale. Stop holding your breath and learn how to live in this moment. The other thing about embracing the truth is getting good at making room for other people to tell you the truth. You'll find out some pretty unflattering things about yourself. Don't ask me how I know that, but you'll find out some pretty unflattering things about yourself along the way. But, you know, when people can tell you that their needs are not being met, or that you're missing crucial pieces of the information, or that something that you haven't foreseen is about ready to head off a cliff, that's not innately an attack on your leadership. That's a sign of support, even if it comes out messy. Why? Because they have just proven to you that they believe you can handle the truth, right? They haven't left the building. They haven't disengaged. Have you ever walked into the room and you tried to get feedback and it was just, honestly, I'd rather have somebody tell me the truth and we can clean up the mess than have completely disengaged people and then fall off the cliff together. So giving people room, making room to tell the truth, for them to tell you the truth, is an act of care, not only for them, but for you. I'm going to give you an example. I was working with a global bank that had, for this one particular team, they were going through a major restructure. And part of the restructure, this particular team, they had been serving a very hyper-niched transaction globally using the same software for since Excel was invented, you know, quite a while ago, almost Atari, but not quite. And so they were a global bank, but they were still using this increasingly buggy system to interface with modern systems. And so this team of about 30 people, each member of that team had developed their personal hacks. They had a little comp book, and they each had one complete workaround. And the people that worked with this team knew who to call for which workaround, and so they had a lot of clout. They had a lot of notoriety and power because they were the only ones, each of them, who had the secret sauce for that workaround that global bank needed. You never know what's going on behind the curtain. So the bank rightfully said, you know, this is probably not the most sustainable approach to this issue. So they hired a software designer, a team of software developers, to build a new platform for this millennium and embed all of those workarounds so they didn't have those holes to fill anymore. And the change implementation team that I was working with had the joy of informing this team. And so they had to tell the team, now your position is staying the same, your clientele is the same, all of that is the same, but the platform is changing. But here's how it sounded to the team. Great news. You know that comp book that you have been curating for the past 2.5 decades? Go ahead and throw that in the shredder on your way out today, because we now have a completely disorienting platform that does all those things without your help. And this young punk who just graduated from college is going to show you how to do your job 2 years before you retire. But other than that, nothing's different. Everything's the same. So this is what the team lead of that team said to the leadership. They said, we can see that this is a necessary fix. We understand that this needs to happen, and of course we'll do it. But here's our challenge. It just feels like you're asking us to come to work in somebody else's clothes. Isn't that powerful? So they had the freedom to tell the truth. Because they had the freedom to tell the truth, the change implementation team was able to discover that the problem, that the resistance that they were feeling in the room had nothing to do with the great software solution itself. It had everything to do with the fact that this team of highly respected, nearly retired individuals who had contributed so much to the stability of the bank's service was feeling eclipsed. And so they became more sensitive, not in changing the implementation, because the implementation was not an option, but their communication and their delivery of that implementation changed because of how they understood it was affecting the people who would be impacted by it. So when we make room for people to tell the truth, we are also gaining an opportunity. Your people are smart, and they have access to the front lines, critical information and perspectives that you don't have access to without their input. So you not only get the inside scoop, but you can actually get revolutionary information to change your approach to implementing absolutely non-negotiable change. It's not about support and resistance. It's about meeting needs. I want to say that one more time because that's so important. It's not about support and resistance. It's about identifying and meeting needs. When people feel like they matter, when they feel like they can tell you the truth, that you have let them in and they can let you in, you will be able to navigate some pretty scary storms. Mr. Rogers once said, "Love is not a perfect state of caring. It's an active word like struggle." To love someone is to accept that person exactly as they are, right here and now. Notice it doesn't say all their behaviors, all their ideas. It says them as a person. When we can communicate that we're struggling to value that person, to see that person in this moment, and they are committing to do the same thing, you will be amazed at what you can navigate. The next thing that you can do is to reduce uncertainty by channeling imagination. Now, I guarantee you, any major drastic change that is being faced by you and your people, imagination has already run wild. It is, you can guarantee it, what can we do to stimulate the imagination? It's gonna happen, right? But the problem is, we don't recognize this as a power that we can channel. What if, instead of telling people not to worry, which is misappropriated imagination, we give them a way to channel their imagination constructively? Let me tell you how Kenny and I did that with our son. Every single time that he had a new surgery coming, we would tell him, "Hey, Victor, we just heard from your doctor, and he said he wants to give you a new nose." He'd say, "Oh, he does?" "Yeah, and here's what he's gonna do. He's going to open up your ear. He's gonna take some stuff out of your ear. He's gonna lift up your nose and build your nose up with the stuff from your ear, and then he's gonna sew you all back up again." He said, "Oh, that's gonna hurt." Said, "Yep, it's gonna hurt really bad. But you're gonna have some things holding your nose in place while it heals, and some tubes stitched up into your nose so you can keep breathing. And every single day, it's gonna hurt a little bit less until finally we can go back and we'll get those tubes removed, we'll get that brace removed, and then you'll be able to breathe better and swallow better and talk better and eat better." But we didn't stop there. We had this little plastic doctor kit. I don't think any doctor kit in existence has gotten more mileage than that little toy doctor kit, because we would then take turns being the parent, the patient, and the doctor. And from beginning to end, we went through every phase, from fasting and packing our bags to going through the anesthesia, performing the surgery, waking up and being in pain and needing comfort, and then the pain slowly subsiding, and then whatever the new thing is that he'd be able to do after the upgrade. And so we did that. And every single time that we practiced, whatever role he was in, do you see how we engaged his imagination? What were we doing? We were also building his awareness of the phases. Just kind of like that pilot, we were telling him how long the turbulence was going to be, what he was going to have access to, what was going to be in his power and his scope of control, what he could expect from us. A lot of times we don't think of stimulating the imagination, and then giving people an opportunity to practice in advance how they imagine it will play out, so that by the time they get there, there's still unknowns, but they're familiar with what they have access to. They're familiar with what's in the scope of their control. They're familiar with about how long the the sign is until the next phase. And so stimulating the imagination can be such an incredible gift to people. Channel that imagination. It's there already. You just got to find a way to channel it. I thrive on thinking about scriptures that have to do with formation. And one of the favorite themes that I see in Scripture is, first, people who have committed their lives to Christ are adopted by God. And then they begin a process of being what's called conformed into the image of his dear Son. About the implications of that statement. And so I want to bring to mind a quote from something Michelangelo said on numerous occasions. Basically, when he saw a block of marble, he said, "My subject is already in there. It's already complete. I just have to set it free, release it with my chisel." Have you ever seen a chisel? It doesn't look like a powder puff. It doesn't look like a friendly instrument. It looks like you could be in Clue, in the library with the chisel, It's not. It's an instrument of violence, really, and chipping away at something that he saw. It looks alive. It looks like it could breathe. It could step out of the marble. What if when you see the chisel coming, not if but when, you see the chisel coming at you, you can think. You can allow for the possibility that a loving God sees a completed version of you, and he is chiseling away at the superfluous material. Those were Michelangelo's direct words. Chiseling away. Oh, I thought I needed that. Apparently not. And so those disruptions that we see in our lives that hurt, in order to be conformed into any image, things have to be cut away from us, removed from us, reshaped in us. And so when we open up ourselves and allow for the possibility that the chiseling is making room to release our truest selves, it makes it easier to continue and embrace the process, even if we didn't choose it. The other thing is this. As an authentic leader, we need to take a look at the people that we're leading and see the completed, beautiful person that they're meant to be. And once that chisel has done its work in us, or we're allowing that work to be in us, we wield that chisel as much as we can to see that human being in front of us who is trapped in ignorance, of lack of skill, undeveloped virtue, lack of awareness, lack of practice, lack of opportunities. And we cooperate with the chisel in our own lives, and then we cooperate with the chisel by telling people the truth. So that work doesn't help make them feel like they're getting chipped away until there's nothing left. So we can help people by telling them the truth to cooperate with the chisel in their own lives. There we go. There's one group of leaders that I am most proud of. And I have worked for a few years with an organization that experienced a tragedy that included large-scale loss of life. And for no fault of their own, the leaders were in over their heads. And they worked a lot of long hours, days and nights, and they were just holding the whole thing together. Part of the problem was that, I talked about those guys with the comic books. They had, everybody does this in organizations. They come to work dealing with stuff in their own lives, right? They come to work and they are becoming human plugins for little pieces of the process to fix it without formal process improvement. It's not recorded anywhere. And then, but when tragedy hits, there's too much noise. There's too much noise in there from the trauma to be able to continue to be that human plug-in. And so they lost half, one department that I was working with lost half of their employees, first by the deaths and then by early retirements and quitting because people couldn't handle it. But the people that were left had too much noise. And so really there was less than half of people that were actually doing work when they came to work. And the leaders set expectations. They while they were holding it together, they had to envision what was possible, and they made it based on what they could see. So it sounded something like this, the progression. Someday, you'll be able to come to work every day and stay at work all day without falling apart. Someday, we'll have all the processes recaptured, streamlined, and accessible so people know what they're doing. Someday, there will be as many people who work here who weren't here on that day as there are people who were here on that day, and it won't feel so heavy. Someday, we'll be stronger than we were before this happened because we had to work so hard to get back. There are so many things in life that I thought were going to be too much in the moment. Anybody relate to that? I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I know I'm going to die. And it didn't happen. Pressed but not crushed. Persecuted but not abandoned. Struck down but not destroyed. The more we can allow the chisel of life to chip away the superfluous materials, the more we can allow the fires that come at us to purge away all the illusions, all the facades that we put up to make ourselves feel legitimate, all the assumptions that we have that it has to go this way because I did this. We throw all those things away. I guarantee you, you're going to smell like ashes for a while. You're going to feel like a failure for a while, and there will be people who are happy to concur while you're down. You're going to question your understanding of yourself, the people around you, your faith, the way the world works. But if you hang in there, you will emerge the strongest, most unsinkable, most unshakable, truest version of yourself. Whatever you're going through right now, whatever your team is going through, whatever your family is going through, your organization is going through, I want to encourage you to imagine that plan A is still here, buried underneath the unknown, waiting for your imagination, waiting for you to allow it to come to the surface and emerge. It's there every day. I will tell you, I thought so many times I missed my plan A. But it's always been there. It's never left. And every single challenge, every single loss, life is a series of losses. Our stories are sprinkled with loss. But those losses were the making of us. Those losses give us, where does strength come from? Growth, trust, wisdom, authenticity. It comes through trial. It comes through the fire. It comes through the chisel. So I want to encourage you. You have not lost your plan A. It's just hidden. Release your idea of how it's supposed to be and give yourself a chance to see a new plan A and the authentic you. That is your ultimate plan A, to become the person that you were born to be. We're going to end with this.
When I see people go through the same thing I went, I just want to cover them and make sure that they don't have to be afraid of what's going on.
You can't
have this much poured into you as a little kid and have this intense of a process unless it's unto something. I expect that when he's older, his impact on people in terms of hope is going to far outshine anything that we could do.
Most kids just grow up, no problems with their mouth, no problems with their palate, speech therapy, nothing with that. But I was different, and that makes me special.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Burchard. Let's give her another round of applause. That was incredible. So much wisdom and encouragement for us today. We can continue to ponder that as we continue on with our day. I also want to thank our lead sponsor, Wells Fargo, as well as our other sponsors. Let's give them another round of applause. And the morning's not over. We've got some incredible things coming up. First of all, there'll be a 30-minute break in the lobby where you can connect with sponsors and with each other. We encourage you to do that. There'll be refreshments out there as well. And then at 9:30, we've got 3 breakout sessions with 3 different locations. So there'll be no assigned seating here in the theater, but back at 9:30 for the Authentic Leadership keynote track, we've got session number 1, which is a panel discussion, a live Q&A led by Dr. Susanna Dobrich-Weiss with Mary Jo and her family, so we're excited about that. Session number 2, you don't want to miss this if you'd like to do this track, How to Build Belonging as a Leader with Dr. Burchard. Over in the BC Lounge, so just outside of the theater building, take the path to your right, would be the Christian Business track from our School of Business. Session number 1 is Shepherding Resilience Within Organizations with Professor Paul Saldana. Session number 2 is Lessons in Business and Life from Bezos and Jesus. I'm sure Mr. Bezos would appreciate that comparison, or maybe not. I don't know what direction Dr. Starcher is going to go with that one. Over in the Ames Conference Center, down the same path, you can follow the signage. Session 1 will be Leadership Point of View Matters with Carlos Huerta, as well as Session 2, Virtues and Talent, How to Unlock the Most Out of Your Team, also with Carlos. So I encourage you to stay around for these breakout sessions as they unfold. Also want to let you know there'll be a snack available in the lobby of the Culture and Arts Center between the 2 breakout sessions. There's also a book on your table, a heartwarming book authored by Dr. Burchard. She signed each copy. One of you at your table has a winning ticket under your seat. You can check that out at the end of the program this morning, and that book is your gift from Dr. Burchard, so you can take that with you. We'd also love to have some feedback from you today on the keynote program, our various breakout sessions. There's a QR code on this screen. If you need to head back to work right now, you can take that survey now. If you're staying for the breakouts, which we encourage you to do, you can take that following the breakout sessions. As a thank you for completing the survey, you will be entered in a prize draw for dinner to 2 to Fleming's Steakhouse. So I encourage you to do that. Thank you for coming this morning. You are now dismissed. May God bless you in your work and service in the community.
Like honey dripping down from his lips. He sure knew how to talk, a target that he had in the wild. He sure did have his mark. He led me to believe that was love. That ain't love, just emotion. Emotion. I wish I took my heart back in time, but I ignored the signs. Love so hard that I couldn't see how much it made me blind. He led me to believe just to trust, so I trusted emotion. Emotion. Will you take my heart? is clearing out of the sky. You help me see the light. This love that had me so bound within. I had to break the tie. Starting to believe there's a chance to heal now that it's over. It's over. Like diamonds being dug from the ground. I finally found the truth that your love is a love that I've bound. My eyes are set on you, Lord, you got my heart, and I finally know that it's over. It's over. Will you take my heart in pieces? I know better now who to trust, when to leave it. I'm falling back in love with what you. Will you take my heart in pieces? I know better now who to trust, when to leave it. I'm falling back in love with what you said. Words you said, words you said, what you It makes my questions grow too large, and I feel that I run far. My memory fails me right. I get enslaved to my own mind. Forgetfulness of your grace drags me around for miles until I see the corner of your smile. Oh, you were good to me before I knew your name. Your grace freed me from a selfish pain. I was lost and I felt the need for you. How could I ever leave? 'Cause you've captured my heart in ways I didn't know I could be captured. Oh, you've captured my heart in ways I didn't know I could be captured. I fall so short from what I can't achieve. Start to agree with what I don't believe. My sensory fails the truth as I disremember who I am in you. Forgetfulness of your grace drags me around for miles until I see the corner of your smile. Oh, you were good to me before I knew your name. Oh, your grace freed me from my selfish pain, my selfish pain. I was lost and I felt the need for you. How could I ever leave? 'Cause you've captured my heart in ways I didn't know I could be captured. Oh, you've captured my heart in ways I didn't know I could be captured. Oh, how could I ever leave? You've been so kind. Oh, oh, stay right here. I went out to buy you flowers. If only CVS carried beauty like your own. I arrived and you found me empty-handed, but I still found your arms open wide at home. When I first saw you smiling, I wondered if one day your smile would be for me. I had doubts, but I couldn't shake the feeling, and I still waited for the time to come around. When you hold me close, I feel the world shifting into gear. My heart returns, and your tenderness melts away my fear. When you hold me close, when you hold me close, I'll take you up to the water tower. If only we could see this far on the road ahead. At night I find I toss and turn, dreaming of your return, but your feelings take some time, and we are almost there. When you hold me close, I feel the world shifting into gear. My heart returns, and your tenderness melts away my fear. I'm so glad it's you. I'm so glad it's you. I know I've got my questions, and oh, you've got your fears, but we don't need the answers, just to be right here. I know you've got your questions, and oh, I've got my fears, but we don't need the answers, just to be right here. When you hold me close, I feel the world shifting into gear. My heart returns, and your tenderness melts away my fear. I'm so glad it's you. I'm so glad it's you. When you hold me close, when you hold me close.
I've tried.
presence and your word. Help me to abide, to remain, to dwell in that space, in your presence, in your presence, in your presence, your presence. When it's difficult, I want to stay in your presence. When my heart is hurting, I want to stay in your presence. When I'm in pain, I want to stay in your presence. I want to praise in your presence. I want to worship in your presence. Even when it hurts, even when it don't make sense, even when it hurts, even when it hurts my head, that's where I want to be. Worshiping you 'cause you love me, loving you 'cause you love me. Your presence, your presence, your presence, your presence, your presence. My Redeemer and his wondrous love to me, 'cause on the cruel cross he suffered from the curse to set me free. Sing, oh sing of my Redeemer. With his blood he purchased me. On the cross he sealed my pardon, paid the debt and made me free. You made me free. I will tell the wondrous story, how my lost estate to save. In his boundless won't set me free. I don't really like this feeling of running away from everything.
Hello? Welcome, everyone. So wonderful to have you here. We would love to move into the next phase of our conversation about leadership this morning. And I would love to invite you to sit closer to us so we can actually see you. So if you don't mind, we would love for you to actually move forward. It's not church, right? So you don't have to sit in the back pew. So come forward. We would love to see you closer and have a conversation with Dr. Burchard and her family. So we'll start in about 2 minutes, okay? If you could move, that would be wonderful. We'll have some mics, so start thinking about some questions that you might have about authentic leadership.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for wanting to be engaged in this incredible opportunity that we have to talk to Dr. Burchard and her family. We are so happy, Mary Jo and Veach. Well, he goes by Veach. I've known him for a long time. His official name is Victor, but nickname Veach. And Kenny, thank you so much for being here. It is a joy to have you here and call you my friend. I would love to engage in a conversation about authentic leadership, and this is really going to be a conversation. I have some questions for our panelists, for our group here, but then I would also love for you to think of some questions that you might have about their own journey, their leadership, maybe some insights that they have about the authentic leadership and the courage that was necessary for them to get to this point. So we have a microphone up here if you're not too intimidated to come up, or you can just raise your hand and I'll run to you and ask and let you ask the questions, okay? So I'm gonna begin with our first question. I guess, should I sit? Is that more polite? Not used to sitting down. So I would love to ask you a little bit about expectations. When I think about leadership, I often think about expectations that we have. We sometimes set goals based on our expectations. So I have a specific question for you. And I think we'll start with Kenny with this one. When you began this adventure as a family, what were your expectations, and how have those expectations changed?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Nice to be with you all. What were those expectations? Okay, on the front end of our journey, especially with our son Victor, our expectations were we're going to fly to Ukraine, we're going to find this perfectly healthy little baby boy, and we're going to adopt him, and we're going to bring him home, and everything's just going to be normal. And so our expectations were, let's say, a lot more idealistic than what we discovered when we got there. And as you heard in Mary Jo's presentation this morning, the way that changed was when we arrived in Ukraine, they gave us a very different picture of what was happening, amongst the orphanages in Ukraine, that we would only be allowed to adopt a child who had moderate to severe healthcare challenges. We were free to leave or stay, or adopt an older child, and we really wanted to adopt a younger child. And you heard Mary Jo tell the story of flipping in the book and seeing the picture, and I was sitting next to her when she paused on Victor's picture. I was sitting next to her, and I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" You need to keep turning the page, because I had never seen an uncorrected cleft lip and malformation of the jaw like what I saw with Victor. And I just could not imagine what this was that I was looking at. And so my whole world was like, no, this isn't right. This is not what we're supposed to be here for. My guts are churning, I just had no idea what in the world was going on. And so my expectations began to change dramatically and drastically. And then we began to educate ourselves, which is a really big part, I think, of leadership. When you hit a challenge that you didn't expect, then you need to go to the data, if you can find it, or create it, because you might be the one, you might be the cutting edge person, because the unique challenge that you're facing that creates the data for this thing. But we spent all night in Kiev in you can imagine it from the scene of a movie, some smoky internet club with guys with guns in their belts, and it just was a seedy place, but they had internet connections in there. So we were scrolling through picture after picture after picture of bilateral cleft lip and palate, and we were educating ourselves. And as we began to educate ourselves and discover the process, then it became more imaginable to go through this situation. And I think as leaders, when we talk about what's the word that we're talking about here, expectations. Your new expectations are the reality that you're in now. And so I have to educate myself for this new reality, this new set of expectations. And if I can do that, then I'll have the tools that I need at least to take the next step. And that's kind of how we began our journey. And that's as much as I'll share for now. Veach, do you want to share anything? By the way, Veach, let's talk about that for a sec. Veach. When we were in the orphanage, we said, what do you call him? Because his name on paper was Victor. And they said, Vitya. Vitya, it's like Joey or Frankie or Danny, for Francis, Daniel, and, Vichka and Vitya. So we shortened it because we're Americans and we do stuff like that. Veach. So we changed it from Vitya to Veach, but it's Victor. Am I right?
I hope you're right.
Okay, so expectations, do you want to share anything about that?
I would say, what can you expect when you're born with a cleft-affected palate and you're in an orphanage? But I guess the best thing you could ever expect is someone to adopt you, to grow up in a very, very great country that can fix your birth defects. So expectation is drastically different when you're born with a birth defect. So anything's better than just having that. That's all I would have to say, because I was young, so there's not much as a young kid can expect for.
I want to add to that. One of the things that blew my mind when he was little is he was not comparing his experience to my childhood. He was comparing it to the orphanage. And my mom had to help me with that because I had expected that when we came home, I was going to just teach for Fresno Pacific and not work full-time anymore, just do adjunct work so that we could circle the wagons and heal a child. But we brought home a child who needed a lot of work, and Kenny was a senior pastor at the time, and so my insurance was the insurance that we needed. Thank you, Fresno Pacific, for, for the insurance. And so I remember we came home and we realized that he was going to need so many surgeries that I couldn't stay home even for the bonding leave. I had to go straight back to work. We were gone in Ukraine for a month, and then we came back. I came back to work, and then he had his first surgery, and I had to go back to work. He was in so much pain. Thank God my mother lived here, and she was taking care of him. But I started driving, and I worked at the Visalia Center at the time. I was crying so hard on my way that day. I pulled over. You're welcome. I pulled over, and I called her, and I was just sobbing, and I said, this feels so wrong. I've waited years, over a decade, to become a mother, and he's waited his whole life to have one, and he's in so much pain, and I'm leaving him to go to work. And my mom said, Joe, see, we have this tradition of going to unisyllabic names. She said, Joe, I have 3 questions for you. I said, okay. She said, do you believe Victor belongs in your family? I said, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. And she said, does he need these surgeries? I said, absolutely. He's not going to be okay if he doesn't get them. And she said, is there any way for him to get these surgeries if you don't go to work? I said, no. And she said, then be at peace. You're exactly where God wants you to be right now. Your ideal, you got to let it go, because God's highest for your son is not at the expense of God's highest for you. Go be his mother. He doesn't, and she said, he's not comparing his childhood to your childhood. He's comparing it to an orphanage. Go be the mother he needs. You don't have to be the mother I was for you. You need to be the mother he needs, and he needs his mother to go to work. So I was so grateful. That helped me. That reframe has helped me so many times just to go back to adjusting my expectations to what I know to be true, and then letting everything else fall into place. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You make my job so easy. I would love to engage the audience. So if you're thinking of a specific question, please either raise your hand or come up here. No pressure. I will come and call on you. So I have another question in the meantime. Obviously, there was no way to know how things would turn out when you got started. And along the way, you have all faced many surprises and many disappointments. So my question is, when were you surprised or disappointed by something on Victor's journey, and how did you process it to face the challenge?
There's a lot of those. Okay, there's a couple of things here. Surprised by challenges. First of all, I was surprised at how many surgeries there were going to have to be. When we came home, the funny line from Mary Jo is 3 diagnoses, 3 surgeries. No.
That's so cute.
And so just adjusting to the reality that this is a marathon and not a sprint, that was a big one for me. But part of the other challenge was I had more equipment than he had in my face, in my head, in my nose, in my mouth. And I was working with him every day on his speech. I was going to speech therapy with him, working with him at night. And this one season, he couldn't say S. You ever met a cleft-affected kid? They blow their air through their nose instead of their mouth when they say S. No, down like this when they talk. And it's because there's equipment missing in the top of the back of their throat. Well, I just thought he wasn't trying. I thought maybe he's not trying hard enough, so I would just say, S, S, and he would say, and he would touch his tongue to the back of his teeth instead of the back of his tongue to the back of his throat, where there wasn't anything. And I remember talking to a speech therapist and saying, why can't he say S? Like you might be working with somebody in your organization and you think, why can't this person perform? Why can't they do this thing that they're supposed to do? And if you step back and say, I can do it, how come they can't do it? Well, maybe they don't have the equipment. Maybe they don't have the education, the tools, the resources, the history, the experience. They have to get that sometimes from someone who can show them how to do it. And sometimes there has to be a rebuild. You know, like in Victor's case, they had to take things from the back of his throat and sew them where they weren't before. And then he could say S. But his speech therapist said, you say S. And so I said, S. And she said, now say it and pay attention to what's happening in your mouth. S. Okay, everybody ready? Let's try it. Ready? S. Now notice how the back of your tongue touched the soft palate in the back of your mouth when you said S. That's a normal thing to you. You learned it when you were a little tiny baby. He didn't have the equipment. And so managing my expectations had to do with not only what I expected from him, but the distance between what I was capable of doing and what he was capable of doing. And then, you know, a leadership lesson here is taking personal responsibility for getting the equipment needed so he could do the basic thing that he was supposed to be able to do that would be natural for him to do. And I'll share just this much and then I'll stop. Because none of us like to talk too much. You might, like, we're all shy. But I remember when he first started now learning how to differentiate speech and singing and things. He may or may not remember this. But we were standing in the hallway of Children's Hospital, and I said, Dr. Witt, this is his plastic surgeon, we want to show you this cool thing that Victor can do now. And Dr. Witt is standing there. Okay. I said, do it, Victor. Now this poor kid has to put up with us going, do it, Victor, his whole life. Come on, Victor. Come on. So I said, do the thing, you know, and he knows what I'm saying. So he goes like this. We ho, wit, ho, ha, how, why, wah, how, wah, ho, wah. And that's how it all came out. Here's what Dad heard. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder. I heard perfect execution of all that. And Dr. Witt just went, which was shocking. He said, you know, and he put his hand on my shoulder, it's really cool that you think that's great. Here's our plastic surgeon. It's really cool that you think that's great. You're his dad. And it's your job to understand that that was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Nobody else ever will, if that's where it stays. So he said, it's your job to understand him right where he is right now. And it's my job to make sure everybody else can understand him when he grows up. So we'll work on this together. So I had to manage my expectations, my skills, and this whole long process. So that was a lot, but that's as much as I'll share. Do you want to say anything right there? Do you want to sing the song?
No.
Do you want to share anything about it?
I will say one thing that surprised me going through all the surgeries and as just continued growth is speaking English. Because I think I was diagnosed that I wouldn't be able to speak proper English ever. And now I'm standing right here, sitting right here, actually talking to you, and I can say S. So that's one surprise that I am glad that happened to work out for me. I'd say one other surprising thing is how long this has been going. I thought I would be done like 2 years ago, because I assumed everything would have been done by now because of almost back-to-back surgeries and years of back-to-back surgeries. I'm not done. I'm still going through a lot of things, and I'm still going to have to probably go till maybe I'm even 30. So it's going to be a challenge, but hopefully an exciting challenge.
I love it. Can I share, Lou? Okay. We have one question right after that.
I want to say that you'll notice this with my son. He frames his life with gratitude, and I think that feeds his expectations. Like he used to say, for his expectations, as he said, he came from an orphanage. So he used to say things like, "Thank you for shoes." I felt like such a good parent. "Thank you for shoes." Or it took him over a year before he said, "I'm full." He always said, "More later." And he would watch us wrap his 3 bites of quesadilla and put it in the fridge. He had to make sure that there was going to be enough. So his expectations, and that's something to think about. Where people come from impacts. They map out their expectations of reality, and you don't realize it, but if you can find out where a map is made by what country is in the center. And so if you ever see a map made in Asia, the United States is way over there, as if it doesn't matter. and so we map things out by our sense of reality, and our expectations are based on what we think is normal. And so part of, I think, a challenge as a leader, if you see somebody who has very drastically different expectations from everyone else, is to find out their story and how to map out where they're coming from, because they clearly have a different context that they're basing their expectations on. So.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. We have one question. I love it.
I think it's gonna be a question, so forgive me as I formulate my thought here. But during your presentation, you spoke about transparency and truth, and I was thinking about your illustration, and I want you to talk about maybe a time where you felt like you couldn't be fully truthful or transparent because maybe Veach or someone else may not have had the capacity to understand that. So I'm thinking, use the illustration of the pilot who comes on over the microphone and says, "Hey, we're gonna hit turbulence," but we don't want to hear him say, "Hey, it's looking bad. we're about to go through a very rough storm," right? And so how do you kind of balance being transparent and truthful, but also knowing, like, what's your filter? How do you hold back? Like, how do you process holding back specifics and still yet being true to being truthful and transparent?
Thank you so much for that.
I want to start, but I'm not going to say all the things. I have to say that. One of the things that I know, we have communicated to our son that he owns his story. And so when he was little, and you can imagine living in the United States and having your jaw hanging out of your mouth. In California, where people have work done just for dramatic effect, and so we had to teach him when he was really little to say, when he was super tiny, 3, he's still barely able to speak English, and he could say, "I have an owie. How are you?" Just naming the obvious so that we could move on. But as he got older, you had to gauge by the audience whether this person could handle the truth. Some people would say, "What's wrong with your face?" And other people, what's going on? And so handling curiosity and helping people to feel comfortable by asking, being honest and asking, is different from somebody bullying. So Kenny worked with Veach when he got into junior high to have comebacks if he didn't feel like telling the story. Like, shark bite, you should see the shark. You know? And so having things that you could just say to put people off, because not everyone has good intentions. And so that's the thing that comes to my mind, is telling the story based on, it's not dishonest to own the parts of the truth that you know that people will mismanage if they have it. So, you want to go?
So that question actually brings up one encounter I had when I was in Monroe. Not in Monroe, so, not elementary, sorry, Lansdowne in Virginia.
Middle school.
Yep. There was one kid that actually spotted my birth defect and shouted, "What's wrong with his face?" And at that point, two thoughts occurred. Could have just said, "Mind your business," or tell him what happened. I chose the second option, tell him what happened. So I go over there, and I'm like, "You want to know?" And he's kind of confuzzled because he's like that. So I tell him, one, I was born this way. I had a birth defect, didn't have a palate. My premaxilla was sticky in front of my mouth, and my nose was flat. Nothing, just silence from him. And I told him, came over here, had a few surgeries, and now I am looking like this. Do you have any other questions? Nothing. So I continue to go right back to class. So transparency like that, I think, helps people understand and then not be too abrasive, like, "Oh, you don't know your place," sort of deal. So transparency is important, but also know when to kind of stop, in a sense. Mm-hmm. You want to say anything?
To the question too of what do you know, there's an issue there about what the listener can process or what they're capable of handling. You know, to your question, well, how much do you share? What if you shouldn't, tell this person everything? And I think, part of that comes down to knowing who you're talking to, especially if you're a leader. It's like, really get to know your team. Who are they? What are they made of? Strengths and weaknesses. There's the story of how they kind of came up in the world, so that you can put each other in an appropriate context of, I know you, I understand you, and I know what your capacities are. So I know I can tell you this much, but maybe not everything. And so knowing the person that you're talking to, understanding their relative level of maturity and how they comport themselves and how they handle information once they have it. So this is about safety, risk assessment, things like that. In the business world, that's really important stuff. Knowing your team, assessing the risks, and then as much as you can, as much as you are allowed to say, and as much as would be healthy and helpful, and you think about what you're trying to do is solve a problem and get through and get to the other side. And so if communication with this person would make that possible, then things line up for you to share that. Sometimes just saying what the goal is enough. Just, we're trying to get to from A to Z. The process is messy, it's hard, but just so you know, here's where we're trying to get. Here's where you're trying to get. And I remember, boy, this might make me cry. I don't think it will. Hey, hang on. Okay. So before one of Victor's surgeries, he and I were standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom. And he was frustrated because we were getting ready to go for another surgery. And he knew it was going to hurt. And he was crying. He was brushing his teeth. I was standing there next to him. We would do things together. I'd brush my teeth, next to him. And he said, how many more? How many more? Crying. So, again, the last thought was share the goal, right? Share the goal. Where are we headed? So I said, look up in the mirror, son. Look up in the mirror. He looks up. I said, do you see my nose? Yes. Now look at your nose. Do they look the same? No. Do you see my lips? Now look at your lips. Do they look the same? No. Look at your teeth. Do you see my teeth? Now look at your teeth. Do they look the same? No. We went through everything. And I said, until your face looks like my face, that's how long we go. As many as it takes for the way you're built to frame up to the way mine is, that's how long this is going to take. And then he went, okay. So you have this ideal in mind. Not that my face is ideal. She thinks it is, but so you put the goal out there, you know. And this relates, you know, in a Christian context. This also relates to what God's doing in our lives. You know, He is saying, "Look at me, look at my face, look at my heart, look at the way I am. I'm going to keep working on you till you line up to that." And that's how long it's going to take. You know, it's your whole life. And so sometimes as much as you can share is the goal, the end goal. And you have to structure the way that you talk about that in a way that the person can handle.
I want to add one thing to that from a consulting perspective. And I've worked with a number of organizations that were navigating some pretty large-scale restructures. And the people that were having to implement these things, oftentimes what I heard over and over again across industries is the goal was announced, but how we were going to get there was not told to us until right when we had to do it. And so we were caught flat-footed when, if we had just been told up front how to prepare, going back to the little doctor kit, you know, if we'd been able to prepare ourselves, things would have gone so much more smoothly. But the leadership kept saying, they think they get a vote. This is not an optional change. And so this is not a democracy. We don't have a choice. This has to happen. And so that's why we didn't tell them. Well, people can be shared the process and that they don't get to vote if you reframe it not in terms of support and resistance, but in terms of what do you need? This is happening. What do you need in order to feel that you are able to, your needs are met as we're navigating this change? Do you see how that's different? We're going to do this. What do you need? How is this impacting you? What are your concerns? The more you're able to do that, you're still giving them a voice. You're not giving them a vote. Oftentimes you can't. Who voted for COVID, right? Pfizer and Zoom. But other than that, we didn't vote for that. And yet it came to us, right? You don't vote. We live in Hurricane Alley now. And you don't vote which neighborhood is going to get hit because it's got the sandbags. No, and yet you can get ready by preparing people in advance and telling them what they can do to equip themselves so that however it hits, we're as buoyant as possible. So that's what I would add to that from a consulting standpoint.
So wise. Thank you so much. We have about 13 more minutes, so if you have a question, please make your way over so you can ask it. I have another question. Mary Jo, in your presentation today, you talked about belonging, and you talked about how it is different from fitting. So I would just like to talk about that a little bit. Obviously, when Victor became your son, he did not fit. And how did belonging help him learn to fit? Maybe Victor can help.
Belonging and fitting in. Fitting in means everyone around you is pretty much the same. Belonging is someone around you cares for you. Fitting in was very different for me, but it did not feel like I didn't fit in, because after the surgeries, I kind of felt normal. And because of these two people right next to me, my mom and my dad, other way around, they helped me fit in by showing I belong to them. And also my friends and my church family also helped me. Because I belong with them, I fit in with them. And I would also say Virginia helped a lot as well, fitting in. because it helped me more reassess certain things that just are natural. And I'll also say, if we're doing this in a leader context, getting to know your coworkers or whoever you're trying to help one-on-one will help find similarities to other people as well. And then you can be the middleman or the bridge builder between any person who seems like they're left out. Because everyone has some similarities that everyone might like or are willing to at least talk with. So belonging and fitting in are two together to work in a sense. You have anything?
I want to tease something out that you mentioned. We ran through these questions yesterday, and he said something really powerful, and I want you to have a chance to say it. You talked about how when you first came, everyone around you knew your story, and that helped them to have context for seeing what they saw. And then your experience was different when you got to Virginia, and nobody knew your story. So talk about the difference between belonging and fitting in terms of the difference that it makes for people to know your story, and how to, as a leader, how does that affect?
Okay, so in California, I grew up with a church that already knew my story, so I never really had to repeat, oh, this is why my mouth looks like this. This is why my nose looks like this. And I think I mentioned this in that transparency question in middle school. I had to learn how to say and tell my story myself. Because my dad and my mom always told my story for me. And everyone around me knew me. Everyone. In Virginia, no one knew my story. They just looked, why does he look like that? So I had to say, this is why I look like that. That's what I meant by I had to change some social acceptance around in California than Virginia Beach. So I had to learn how to tell my story, how to connect with that person. Because after I told my story, they're like, oh, so that's why it looks like that. You're not as different as me and you. We're pretty much the same. You just had a few differences, but now you look like me. So there's not much difference in anything. So.
And I love yesterday you had wonderful application to leadership as you shared about what leaders should do to get to know each other's stories.
I think I touched that already. If someone seems very out of place, try to, as a leader, try to at least connect with them one-on-one, and that alone might actually help some connection. Because if the person can at least talk to you one-on-one, just if it's like, what movie did you go to, or what do you have any plans, they can at least confide in you something. And then you could, again, be that bridge builder and find some similarities to help them connect with others so that they fit in with other people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Victor. We have Michael who's going to ask a question.
Hello. I think we all, can I just a little taller? I think we all as humans try to keep things in the box, and, we say control what we can control. But, we find in life and as followers of Christ that there's so many things we don't control, and there's so many things that we have as our will that we have to submit to God for His. How has the things that you have not been able to control helped your family's faith collectively and your personal relationships with Christ?
So good.
So I want to touch on that. So when things are outside your control, that's where you're being tested the most. Moving to Virginia was, again, I was 12. That was not in my control. But you have to kind of adapt in that way. And honestly, it's being a Christian helped me with that the most. Because when we moved, I had no one familiar in my age group. I was by myself, And most of the time, I was kind of isolated because he was at work. She was, I think you were doing your at work and school, right? So most of the time, I was by myself, but I still felt loved because I was praying with my family. And I actually think we went to a Christian church school, right?
Yeah, you went to a Christian
Yes. Atlantic Shores, that was what it's called. Having at least a community that was Christian let me fit in, even though I didn't get a choice to move. And even though there were a few things that still were outside of my control, like schoolwork, for example, moving and going from an apartment complex to a house and so forth, it still helped that having a community just that has some similarity, even though you may not know them, helps you feel at peace. Do you want to say anything?
I have another question, or do you want to?
Really quick, I just want to say that when everything else around us is outside of our control, we still control how we respond and how we frame it. And our faith gives us the framework that's necessary to be the house that's built on the rock, that's not going to be destroyed by the storm. Because if this is one of the things that I ask myself when everything is crazy and I don't recognize anything, and I'm in Joseph. I say, okay, is there anything in this situation that will keep me from becoming like Jesus? If the answer is no, then anything else we can get through. Because the ultimate goal is to be conformed into the image of Christ. And so that helps me when everything else is not going according to plan and everything is disorienting. If I can look at this and say, can this be used to shape me into the heart of Christ, then we're okay. We're going to get through this. So thank you for that question. I think it's an important one.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Bouchard family. We have about 3 more minutes, so I want to kind of wrap up with some final thoughts for our time together. And so, obviously, we've shared a lot and such wonderful and wise things. I want to talk about gifts and maybe the gift that you have received. So, what do you see as the greatest gift you gained from things you had to face? And also, what do you see the greatest gift you received from each other? So those are kind of the 2 questions combined, and then I will ask them, or for maybe mom and dad, to talk about implications for leadership.
So I'll start. The greatest gift are these 2. Because 1, they adopted me. And then 2, even with my birth defects and my flaws, they're like, you know what? We're going to take this kid. We're going to go through the hard times, the troubled times, through the good and the bad, and we're going to be his parents, regardless of the outcome. And because of that, I am now sitting here with fixed face, a no longer deformed mouth, no longer deformed palate, because of these 2. That's a gift unto itself. And I will also say another gift is because of Christianity, this was also possible. So that alone is a massive gift unto itself. That's all I would have to say.
Say yes. Just kidding. Man, there's so many gifts. Of course, I will do this quickly. I remember storming around my kitchen about 2 years before Victor came into our lives and praying, God, why don't I have any children? I have a house. I have a job. I have a beautiful wife. I have everything a child could need. There's a room. There's all of this. Why don't I have a child? We can't have kids. you know. And the Lord reminded me of a vow that I had made years before that I would never adopt a child. That the answer to that, the flashback of myself saying that was the moment where God kind of answered my prayer. Why don't I have? And because you said that back here. You think it's going to be the way you want it, but you're closed off to other options and opportunities. And then I opened my heart and said, okay, maybe I was wrong to say that. and then when I told my wife about this prayer time, I said, I guess I'm open to adopting a child. She said, oh, good. And she came out, and she said, I'll be right back. And she came out of the office with this file on adopting from Ukraine.
Ring binder, actually.
Yeah. You've been doing all this work? And, you know, the gift that I've received is unexpected blessings when you give up, well, I will have it this way, and it has to be that way, and your expectations are immovable, like you're not willing to budge on what you're open to. And the gift of being open to something that I said back here I was not open to has opened up a world I never knew was possible, not only for me and my wife, but for this young man here. So that's the gift for me.
Beautiful. Mary Jo, can I have a different question for you?
I'll tell them later.
Yes. You can share quickly, but I wanted you to share about the gift, but also want you to kind of give us a closing remark about whatever you want to share with the leaders who are maybe currently facing some extreme difficulties and maybe where pain is unavoidable.
I have no doubt that every person in this room is struggling with something, whether it's at work or at home in your family life or just in your own head. And Jesus said, unless a seed go into the ground and die, it abides alone. But if it die, it will bring forth much fruit. I think so often our visceral response when we are up against the wall is to stop whatever it is from happening, stop the loss, stop the death of a dream, the death of an expectation, the death of an assumption. But what if the only way to ever find out what you never knew you always wanted is to let it die, to let the expectation die, and to let God show up on his own terms to create something from nothing, or at least nothing that you could imagine on your own. So my encouragement to you, whatever your faith background is, to ask yourself, what if there are gifts hidden in this terrible situation that I will only be able to discover if I let go and lean in. So that would be what I would say is let go and lean in and believe that you can make it through to the other side, and the death is not a destructive death. It is unto life.
Thank you, friends, so much. Would you join me in just thanking them for this time? Please forgive me, we're 3 minutes over our time, but I would love for you to go outside. There's some refreshments, and then we will start the next session at 10:30. 10:30, okay. Thank you so much.
Where do I put this? Put it right there?
'Cause what we got will stand the test of time. I love how it feels. The feeling is real. And I know when I wake up, you'll be here. I always saw it being you and I. 'Cause what we got will stand the test of time. I love how it feels. The feeling is real. And I know when I wake up, you'll be here. Keep me in your care. Keep me near. There's safety when I'm with you. You'll be there course I'm taking, I will stand upon your word. When my well's running dry and I don't know how to provide, I will stand upon your word. Even when I cannot see, God, you have a plan for me. And the promises you make, you never break. I know that you love me. I know that your hand is on me. I know that you're with me. I know that this hurt is only temporary. In the wars and the fighting, when calamity's rising, I will stand upon your word. When I know I can't bear the cost, thinking all that I have is lost, I will stand upon your word. Even when I cannot see, God, you have a plan for me. And the promises you make, you never break. I know that you love me. I know that your hand is on me. I know that you're with me. I know that this hurt is only temporary. I know that you love me. I know that your hand is on me. I know that you're with me. I know that this hurt is only temporary, only temporary. I heard you calling my name from when I was young. Your spirit like the daybreak from when I begun. You were singing lovely. You're all I see. You're the one that I want, and it's all that I need. I heard you calling me up out of the miry pit. His love will never change. I know. Mommies and daddies always believe that their little angels are special indeed, and you could grow up to be anything. But who would imagine a king? A shepherd or teacher is what you could be, or maybe a fisherman out on the sea, or maybe a carpenter building things. But who would imagine a king? It was so clear when the wise men arrived and the angels were singing your name, that the world would be different 'cause you were alive. That's when heaven stood still to proclaim. One day an angel said quietly that soon he would bring something special to me, and of all those wonderful gifts he could bring, who would imagine? Who could imagine? Who would imagine a king? is fathered by God and has intimate knowledge of Him. This is how God showed His love among us. He sent His one and only Son down to us so we might finally live through Him. This is how we know that we live in Him, and He in us, He's given us His Spirit. Let us love one another, love one another. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. Yeah, God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. This is how love's made complete among us, so we have confidence the day of judgment. In this world we're meant to be like Jesus, like Jesus, like Jesus. There's no fear in love when love is perfect, so love your brother in full abundance. We love because He first loved us. This is how we know that we live in Him, and He in us, He's given us His Spirit. Let us love one another, love one another. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. Yeah, God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them.
Thank you so much for coming. We're going to start in just about 30 seconds. If you can find your seats, we'd love to have you.
Do we have the presentation up and ready to roll? Okay, great. Yay. How's everybody doing? Good. This morning has flown, hasn't it? I feel like we just got started, and it's hard to believe that we're rounding up the final lap of our morning together. So thank you for hanging in and sticking around. Did everybody get the flyer or the handouts for today? Excellent. There should be some on every table, so if you didn't get one, raise your hand if you need one, and Susanna is going to come around and give you one if you need one. Excellent. Wonderful. So I want to start by saying there's something that we said in the first session, and that is the thing that people need more than anything else when things are upside down is to know that they matter, is that state of belonging. And I don't know if you're familiar with a researcher, storyteller named Brené Brown, but one of the things that I found so interesting is that when she started asking people about their belonging experiences, she was stunned to discover that most people at the beginning, thousands of people were responding by telling her what it was like to not belong. Isn't that interesting? We all have a visceral response to the word belonging. And unlike so many other words that are used today, this word has not yet been hijacked by social media and people that try to exploit things. We know what it means to belong, don't we? We know what it means to not belong, too. So I want to open by a quote from Maya Angelou. She said, "I long, as does every human being, to be at home wherever I find myself." Isn't that a powerful statement? It's such a visual, to be at home wherever you find yourself. And I don't think that is just about location. I think that has to do with seasons of life, situations, scenarios, dynamics with different individuals, to be 100% comfortable in your own skin. So you can stand up straight and unapologetically be all of yourself in the room. That's what it means to belong. Now, I want to encourage you to do something for a minute. Because we all nodded our heads when I said everybody knows what it means to belong. So what I want you to do for a second is to close your eyes. I'm not going to make you do anything creepy or weird, I promise. To close your eyes. And I want you to imagine a time when you had an overwhelming sense of belonging. You can go back as far as you need to into your childhood, but I want you to go to that space. Who's in the room with you? What are you doing? What did people say or do that conveyed that sense of belonging? What felt far away from that space? What felt not allowed in that space so that you felt belonging? All right, you can open your eyes. What did you feel when you had that memory? What were some things that you felt in that moment when you went back to that space? This is not a rhetorical question. You can shout it out. Safe. Good. What else? Calm. What was it? Gratefulness. Purpose. Ooh, those are so good. Yeah, we automatically, it just fills your soul up, doesn't it? When you know that you are allowed to exist as your whole self in a space without having to make yourself something else into some other shape in order to be allowed to exist in that space, there's something soul-feeding about that. Now, I want to talk about what I don't mean when we talk about belonging. And I said this earlier in the keynote. Belonging and fit are not the same thing. Oftentimes they get used interchangeably. One of the most devastating things that people have been told when they're being let go in a job is that you don't belong here. That's a terrible thing to say. Fit and belonging are not the same thing. Belonging has a visceral meaning that we associate to being allowed to exist as who we are, right? And so we can convey belonging with or without fit. And that doesn't mean that everybody should be in the job that they're in, right? There are certain performance expectations and things like that. But to put the word belonging and attach that to firing somebody is one of the most devastating things that you can do to another human being. Words matter. So belonging is not fit. Belonging is a sense of being wanted, seen, valued, anticipated, and accepted. Have you ever walked into a room and you've had people go, "Oh, good, you're here. Oh, good. Here's your space. Here's your spot." There's something so validating in that, right? Have you ever walked into the room? I'm a middle child, so I can raise both hands on this. And people are like, "Oh." This is why I don't like the word inclusion. I'm a middle child, and I don't know how many times my mother told my older sister, "Include your sister. She's going to come with you. You take her along." And I get to be the, nobody wants me there, but I'm included. I'm walking on eggshells. Don't do anything to embarrass me, And so I don't like that word. And another word that I really, really don't like is tolerated. Because I hide it well, but I'm a little larger than life. I'm kidding. I don't hide it well at all. But I know what it is like to be in a room where people are putting up with my being in the room. And it does not feel like love. It feels like checking off a box. And I can't get out of that room fast enough. But belonging is something very different. Belonging is looking somebody in the eye and making them feel like they're worth knowing. That's so different. So different. And we each could, even though I didn't give you a definition, we could close our eyes and remember what it felt like. No matter how far back we had to go, we remember what it felt like to belong, right? And I want to just say this. If belonging is a limited quantity, like only the elite belong, that's not belonging. That's not belonging, because belonging is infinite. Belonging does not need to seek permission. I can extend belonging to you before you give it to me, because I'm choosing to let you feel valued by me. Does that make sense? And that is not how things are discussed oftentimes. We conflate belonging with fit. And when we do that, we shortchange everybody in the room, including ourselves, at the potential and the power of belonging. So if I don't have to wait for permission to extend belonging until someone gives it to me first, I could have just gotten here, and I can still look for somebody, and I'm feeling awkward. I can look for somebody in the room who also feels awkward, and I can help them to feel like they're not alone. I don't have to be the host. I don't have to be the one that's in charge. If I choose, I can extend value to the people around me. That's belonging. Belonging sees differences. It doesn't pretend like we're all the same. It recognizes that stories are different, that abilities and gifts are different, and it celebrates the differences, or is sensitive to those differences, and doesn't require that everybody have the same opinion or have the same ability or the same skill level in order to belong. But it also works to understand where the gaps are. So there's a lot of conversations today where we celebrate differences by building the bigger gaps. You know, we're different, but I'm more different than you are, and your differences aren't as special as my differences. That's not what we're talking about here. It's if you were here for the second when my son was in the panel, and he said, it's sitting down and getting to know somebody else's story, so that you can say, so that's why. So that's why you responded that way. So that's why you have a desire to do that. So that's why that thing repels you. I understand. I see that's a difference. I don't have that background, and so that's why I don't respond the same way. It seeks to learn new ways to communicate meaning and find common ground. So we don't have to be the same, but if I find out that me using a certain story does not resonate with you, then I'm going to try and find another way to convey the same impact to you so that you can have a comparable experience. That's what belonging does. And it doesn't matter what position you hold in an organization. You can be looking for ways that people are getting left out. You can never have enough protected classes to make sure that nobody is left out. But you can see every human being who walks through the door and make sure they're not left out. You can have everybody technically at the table and nobody feeling wanted, right? So we're not talking about the checking off boxes. It doesn't make room for people. It assumes room already exists for everybody. Do you hear the difference in that? We're not making room for everybody. We recognize that there's room for everybody. And so we're just acknowledging that every person has a seat at the table. And part of that, going back to the hard internal work, is that belonging has to start inside of ourselves. If you believe that somebody has to give you permission before you're allowed to belong, it's going to be a long, hard, exhausting life. But if you know that you are beloved and deeply valuable, and nobody has to give you permission to be valuable, you can be free. You can be free. So, and then it flexes and it evolves. It recognizes that active care and value for each person can mean adapting approaches to make sure the intended impact of an experience is not lost for certain people. One example is I work with an organization in Norfolk, Virginia called St. Mary's Home. It's a home for severely disabled children. And one of the things that you notice when you walk into that room, into that place, is that all the windows go all the way down to the floor. Something so simple. Do you know why? Because children in wheelchairs can't see out the window. And all the flower beds are low to the ground. And there are ramps where normally you'd see steps. And so it's conveying a message, right? Everything in that building and everything, the way that people can interact, is looking at the experience, the intended experience of that room for every person who might enter it. So let's talk for a minute about how belonging impacts us. I'm going to encourage you to do this. I don't have time to do this with you today. Normally, if I do a belonging workshop, it's a half day. So instead of talking like an auctioneer, I had to let go of some things. But I'm going to tell you about this activity, and I want to encourage you to try it with a group. So I don't want to tell you that yet. Okay, so I often open with telling people, I want you to imagine a moment where you really felt like you belonged. Now, that's going to be on a scale of 1 to 10, a 10. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, a 1 is you are a vital organ that has just been translated into a body, and that body is rejecting it. So you're a lung, but you can't lung hard enough for that body to want you to lung in that body. They'd rather suffocate and die than breathe through your lung, through you lunging, you know? Can you say lunging? You know what I'm saying? Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you were a rejected organ? That there was something in the room, a tension that you could feel in the room, in the office dynamics that said, you are not welcome here. Your personhood is not welcome here. When you feel that, it takes so much just to keep breathing in and out. So what I did is I tell people on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that memory that you had, and 1 being a rejected organ, a rejected vital organ. I want you to rate your belonging dynamic at work. Scale of 1 to 10. And I give people index cards to put that number without putting a name on it. And then I have them flip it over. And I say, give me 3 to 5 words that describe the vibe in the room at work. So now I'm going to share this. The results here are from the participants at the International Leadership Association Global Conference. So we had leaders from all over the world. And for the people that rated 1 to 3, look at the words. Toxic and fake got the most votes, but we have unforgiving, side deals. I think that was supposed to be superficial. Problem, exclusionary, pretentious, unvalued, cliquey, hateful, constant gaslighting, maybe, inauthentic, sabotaged, ignored, invisible, excluded, tolerated, made it onto the 1 to 3 category. Interesting, isn't it? Not respected, jealous. Now we move into the mid-range. Whoops. I hope I didn't click. Oh, sorry. One more. There we go. Thank you. And we have, you can see some are positive and some of them are just getting by. So performance focused. That means do your job. You know, leave your personal life at the door and do your job. By the way, that's not great advice. The best thing that you can do is, because the best thing that people have is in their personal life. What causes them inspiration, what makes them want to do their highest and their best is not at work. If you tell them to check it out the door, guess what? That's why we have these percentages that say 40% of the time people are spending looking busy. They're disengaged. Why? Because they're supposed to be checking their personal life out the door. The problem isn't bringing your personal self to work. It's improper integration. So helping people to learn how to bring the right parts of their personal life for the situation, that's what you want, right? Not to tell them to check the whole thing at the door. But big stick, faking, underutilized, respectful, and respected. Isn't that interesting? I respect you. I'm professional. I do my job and I go home. It's not cruel, but I certainly don't feel like going to Thanksgiving dinner with my coworkers, right? And here is the people that rated 7 to 9. Look at the difference. Purpose-filled, solution-focused, open, supportive, positive, curious, loving, celebratory, warm, inviting, eager, creative, authentic, colleagues, open-minded, problem-solving, high focus, interdisciplined, courageous, support. Do you hear just such a different vibe? You can almost feel it in the room, just filling up your heart and your lungs. So the more people feel like they belong, the more they described the kind of atmosphere that anybody would want to work at. Isn't that interesting? So belonging impacts you. Social connection, optimism and positivity, and reframed stress have been found. Sean Acor, go watch the Happy Secret of Work or something. It's Sean Acor, TED Talk. But the three things that set human beings apart as super performers is not intelligence, it's not emotional intelligence, it's not where you got your degrees. It is social connection, optimism and positivity, and reframed stress. Guess what? Belonging does all three of those things. You're letting people in, right? And you are helping people feel safe enough to reframe they're not going to look at it as an attack. They're going to look at it as a challenge because we're going to be in on it together. So at least nobody in this room is diabolical, right? That's a whole other problem. And then stress is reframed. And the other thing that is interesting is that people that have these traits also tend to live longer lives. Think about that. If you're walking into work and you're not having to check your back, and all the energy of wondering whether or not people are out to get you could be focused on your actual work, how much more you could thrive, right? Because you're not trying to prove anything. This is how not belonging impacts you. Social disconnection, anxiety, depression. There's a loss of identity. You get bad behaviors. When people feel like they don't matter and what they do doesn't matter, guess what? No shock here. The work ethic goes down because it doesn't matter what they do, so who cares? Fear and pessimism begins to start becoming one of the things that people try to protect themselves, however, and so they start expecting the worst. And then stress becomes a threat. Instead of a challenge, it's a threat because people are out to get you. So if you show any sign of weakness, they're going to twist it to make you look bad so that they're not the ones that go down. And so that affects your health as well. How many of you remember Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom? Okay, I just dated myself. It was a wilderness show that came on. It was one of my favorite shows when I was a little kid, but we all have watched, Discovery Channel or the Wildlife, whatever. So have you ever noticed the hunting animals, what they do? Do they go after, let's go after the one that's in the middle of the pack. Where do they go? They find the people that are out in the back, the weak ones, the older ones, the ones that are kind of out on the fringe, right? And the same thing is true for bullies. Have you noticed? They try to get you alone. They try to isolate you, gaslight you, make you think that you're the only one who thinks certain ways, feels certain ways, and you're the one that's going to go down. And they kind of set that expectation, so then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is what, if I could give it a name, that looks like in your head. I have nobody, and what I do doesn't matter. Belonging stops bullying. Because the hunter can't pick anybody off because there is no fringe. You come alongside people and bullying goes away. Think about that. Belonging is powerful. So, if you're looking at your work environment and you're going, oh, we've got some problems. There's not a high belonging in my workplace. The good news is you're not stuck with the environment that you inherited. You remember what I said? You have the power to extend belonging before it's extended to you. That's so encouraging. So, what we're going to do, we're going to transition, and this is not going to be another keynote. We are going to do some interaction. I'm just kind of framing it for you, and hopefully these materials that I'm giving you, you'll be able to use multiple times. But I want you to, one more time, close your eyes, and I want you to imagine something. And this isn't going to be a long one, but I want you to imagine going home from work every day, and every person that you came in contact with that day is going home knowing they mattered. What would that look like? Every single person that you came in contact with at the end of the day is going home knowing they mattered. Open your eyes. That's possible. That is not dependent on a policy. Just like you can't have enough protected classes, you can't have enough anti-bullying rules, put up enough, this is an anti-bullying environment. You can't do that enough to make bullying go away. So what can you do to assess belonging and then start building belonging? That's where we're going to go next. So everybody here knows what it's like to belong. I don't have to give you a definition. You know what that looks like, right? All right. So the first thing that we need to do is to stand in the truth that we are beloved, that we are cherished and treasured by our Creator. And we're made in His image. And when He looks down, He says, that's my baby. He's proud of you. Remember what Mr. Rogers said, right here and now. Not the future you once you get that degree. Or don't not get degrees, but not when you get better in XYZ. Right here and now, the human being that you are has innate value, and you are cherished and beloved. Now, when people know that, and someone comes at them and tries to devalue them, you know the awesome thing? It's like a chihuahua. I have one, so. A chihuahua going after an elephant. Doesn't make a dent. Doesn't make a dent. Because they know who they are. I chaired a fascinating dissertation a while back where the researcher interviewed 10 executives of IT tech companies, and these executives were African American women. We're talking about a double minority. The vast majority in the United States of tech people are white Caucasian males, right? And so for leadership to be really, truly leadership and to be influence, the people that are following have to see that person as prototypical of them. I want to be like that person. We have a lot in common. So the question that this researcher asked was, how were these amazing, highly respected, highly influential executives able to be seen as prototypical leaders when they didn't look anything like the people that they were leading? And here's what came out. They didn't wait for permission to extend belonging. So everybody in the room is human. And when the people around them got it wrong, this is what the response was. Oh, they don't know. Let me show them. One lady, she was coordinating all up and down the eastern seaboard meetings, and when she got there to present at the meeting, she was the only one that looked like her. There wasn't a chair for her. She didn't have water, anything. She was like, that's okay, I'm speaking. I don't need any of that. And she just brought all her whole self. She let them in. She didn't wait for permission. She so blew them away that at break, they were like, can we get you some water? Can we get you a chair? You're so awesome. You know, and she said, I'll just enlighten them. They'll get it. They'll get it pretty soon. She just brought herself. And that came out over and over and over again. Don't wait. You do the hard work to allow the truth to sink in that you are beloved and that you are valued right now before you have anything else put on top of you. The next thing is, now that you know that, that is one of those things you got to keep. And I will tell you this, it's an ongoing journey. You don't arrive. It's you got a little closer, right? It's an ongoing journey. But these next things that you're going to notice are on your paper. So you'll see the scales of 1 to 10. Now, I didn't know which version would resonate with you. So you have I see you on one side, and on the other side you see I am seen, I am heard. You can use either one as we go through this, okay? But the question that I want you to think about is this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you doing conveying that message to others at work? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how well is the environment conveying that to you? Okay. So here's the first thing. Learn to see. Learn to see what is and what can be. This is an unconditional welcome. I mean, obviously, if somebody's trying to hurt you, that's an exception. But the attitude of your heart is, you're worth the struggle. You're worth getting to know. You're worth the rumble that we're going to be in together. And so the beautiful, the awkward, the potential good, the ugly, the unchangeable, you see it all. And right here and right now, you see the person in front of you and you value them. So on a scale of 1 to 10, mark, how are you doing in conveying that message? And how's the organization doing in conveying that message to you? All right, here's the next one. Actually, wait just a second. Just to quit. Whoa. Sorry. Just a couple of things. Get curious. Curiosity can help you do by choice, can help you reframe a threat to make it something that you can assume might be able to do you some good. If you're curious about something, you're gonna engage with it differently. So get curious about where's that coming from? Okay, show compassion, and then take courage. I loved what the president of FPU said this morning. Courage is about engaging the heart, right? Putting your heart out there. Take courage. All of that is necessary to see. The next thing is to listen deeply. Ann McKnight said, listen to the person behind the words. I love that. Listen to the person behind the words. What are they really trying to say? Don't try and get so caught up in catching people in their exact words. Try to hear what they're really trying to convey and ask them. One of the things we had to get really good at in our family is this what you're trying to say? Active listening. Is this what you're trying to say? Until we'd get a yes. Okay? Get good at listening deeply. Whoops. I keep doing that. I'm sorry. Whoa. Again, you'll see a lot of quotes from Mr. Rogers. He's my favorite. When we truly respect what someone brings to what we're offering, it makes the communication all the more meaningful. We speak with more than our mouths. We listen with more than our ears. Have you ever been trying to talk to somebody and they seemed so preoccupied that you felt like you weren't making a dent? And then they removed all doubt by saying, huh? After you finished. Or they just repeated back some key word that had nothing to do with what you were really saying. So listening deeply is a way that you can convey belonging. So now on your paper, you see the next one? Scale of 1 to 10. How well are you listening deeply at work? And a scale of 1 to 10. How well are they conveying that they're trying to hear you? Okay. Number 3, act like what you do matters. Act like what you do matters. Have you ever, well, it doesn't matter what I do anyway. Well, what if it does? What if it does because you make it matter? There are flowers that bloom on the mountaintop in Switzerland that are never seen by human eyes, and yet they matter. They matter to the glory of God. So act like what you do matters. Every action, every word matters. It might not matter to you, but that little side reference when you picked up the stuff off the copier, did you really make an effort to act like it mattered how you engaged with the person that you passed by in the home? Maybe they were in a tough place. And just that smile, or just saying, man, I'm so glad that you came today. Just that thing that you did was enough to give them enough buoyancy to get through the day. Act like what you do matters on a scale of 1 to 10. Oops, did I do that? Sorry. Scale of 1 to 10. Let me go back. Scale of 1 to 10. How well are you doing that in your organization? How well are you acting like what you do matters? And then how well is the organization acting like what you do matters? Okay. Let me think, as you're doing these, I want you to later go back and reflect on, why did you put those scores the way that they did? What actions or inactions were making you conclude those numbers, right? All right, number 4, do what helps people feel wanted. Look for belonging gaps and close them. Listen, one of the things that people often tell me in management is I can't convey belonging because people's performance, right? And if I make them feel like they belong, then they'll take it off or they'll get too comfy. The opposite is true. If you convey belonging to people, you can talk straight to them, and they will not be attacked. Because you're saying, I care enough about you that I know your performance can be way better than this. This is not your best. I believe in you, and this is not you. This is something else. Get that out of here, and let's see how far you can go. See the difference? You can talk straight to people when they belong. So do what helps people feel wanted. Part of that is closing the belonging gaps can be as simple as, hey, you in your previous office, it might have been cool for you to do X, Y, Z, but in this office, that makes everybody feel really awkward. It doesn't have to be anything about a protected class, anything. It could just be something that just is a norm. And it's not a norm in this office. It's not a norm on this team. And so here, I'm just going to let you in on the unknown, unwritten thing so that you can close that belonging gap so that they can have the recipe to the secret sauce of how to get along with everybody on the team. Okay? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you doing that with other people where you're helping them to feel wanted? And how well is the organization conveying that message to you? Scale of 1 to 10. And this is one of the things that we did with Veach. Our son, that was his nickname, by the way, Veach. It's short for Vichka or Vitya. We're Americans, so one syllable is already way too many. Anyway, but when he didn't fit and he didn't know how things worked in this country, we didn't start by telling him all the rules. You know what we started by doing over and over and over again? We love you, we love you, we love you, we love you, we love you. And we modeled what was important. We modeled how we do. And you know what? When he started talking, this is how it came out. We think this. We love this. We do this. The we came first. Because when people belong, they want to embody that. So show care and support from their point of view. Not how you would want it, but ask them, how do they feel supported? What do they need in order to feel like their arms are lifted and they can get the thing done? So that is part of extending belonging. We're almost done, you guys, I promise. Hang with me. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you supporting the people the way they need to feel supported, not the way you want to be supported, or the way that you like to support, but the way they need support? And how well is the organization conveying that support to you? Again, Mr. Rogers. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. This has been brought to you by Mr. Rogers. All right. The roots of all our lives go very, very deep. And we can't really understand a person until we have the chance of knowing who that person has been, what that person has done, and liked, and suffered, and believed. That's belonging. So I gave you an extra thing that I was not expecting to use, but I want to just tell you what is in your hands so that you can use this in your own leadership, in your own work, in your own life. First, there are some reflection questions about what can you do to ensure that you're doing everything you can to help people belong. And it gives you some ways to reflect on that. And on the back, from an organizational standpoint, and you can use a scale of 1 to 10 to do this too. How well is your onboarding? How well are your policies and protocols conveying belonging? How well is the building and the atmosphere of the what people see, hear, and experience just in the aesthetics? How is that conveying belonging? Stories and behaviors. Are you welcoming other people that just got there to join in the writing of the current chapter? Or are you constantly saying, oh, that's an inside joke, you had to be there, you weren't there? That's not conveying belonging. Power and influence. Are the people that have power and influence modeling, conveying the value of other people? And then in your own life, have you found anything that we've talked about today that needs some attention in conveying, doing what you can to convey belonging? So I will stick around. I know that we're getting ready to wrap up. Guys, it's been such a joy to be with you today, and I will stick around if anybody wants to talk, but thank you so much for your engagement today. I wish we had more time. I would love to keep going, but I know you have lives. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. This finishes officially our session. I just would like to thank Dr. Burchard one more time for our excellent session. So if you could join me one more time for...
The extra handouts, if you see any lying around, you're welcome to take. Be our guest, be our guest.
And I would just like to, I was just receiving a text message from a few that are actually online, and so I just want to see you and tell you thank you for being with us virtually, and thank you all who are working behind the scenes trying to make this possible for us so we can include people that are not physically here present with us. And for all of you that are here, what a joy it was to spend a morning with you learning and thinking deeply about leadership. I hope you are inspired. We look forward to partnering with you as Fresno Pacific University for all of your needs in terms of leadership, and we look forward to partnership in the future. Thank you so much. May the Lord bless you.